Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I have a really fun and colorful project for you guys using supplies from the Simon's Stamp Sunflower and Daisies October 2022 card kit. I'll be using the Sunflower Fields stamp set and the coordinating Sunflower Fields layering stencils. This is a really fun project where I'll be using a single huge floral stamp to create two thank you cards. This card design is very simple and easy to mass produce using multiple combinations of colors. The best part is that you get two cards at a time. So this is the best way to double up on your thank you cards, birthday cards, or well, cards for any occasion. Well, before we get started, I would really appreciate if you could take a minute to subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon so that you get notified each time I post a new video. Let's get started. Here's a look at this huge 6x8 sunflower field stamp set by Simon's Stamp. I love the beautiful floral arrangements on this stamp set. We have this huge bouquet of sunflowers which can cover an entire background. We also have the single floral arrangements which could stand alone as your focal point, and well, take a look at those beautiful fonts on the sentiments. Included in the kit is this 6x6 inch sunflower fields layering stencils. These stencils coordinate perfectly with the sunflower field stamp set. The fun part about using layering stencils is that it makes coloring so much more easy and saves so much of my time. I have four stencils here, each with different layers of huge floral designs that can be seen on the stamp set. Well, the intricate detailing on the stencil is perfect to add colors even to the tiniest of the floral arrangement. I will be using this huge floral arrangement stamp for our cards today. This could entirely cover an A2 size card panel, but since I plan on making two cards at once, I'll be taking a card panel that measures 8.5 by 5.5 inches. This is a standard size for your regular A2 size note cards. I place this long panel onto my stamping tool and I will align the floral stamp right in the center of this paper. You will notice here that I left my stamp upside down. This is so that the stamp does not touch the edge of the card panel and I get a perfectly stamped image. Usually if your stamps are touching the edges of the stamping tool, there are chances that you might miss the edge of your stamp. And since this is such a big image, I didn't want to leave room for any kind of error. To stamp my image, I will be using the VersaFine Onyx Black ink. This is a really dark black pigment ink which will allow me to use embossing powder over it. I'm using the Simon's Stamp Clear Embossing Powder all over this image. Well, you can skip the embossing powder and just use your ink to stamp the image. I like the look of the embossed image. Well, you will see me using this technique for almost all of my cards as I love the look of a raised glossy embossed image which is perfect as is, or also very beautiful when you go to color it. Take a look at how gorgeous this looks. If you're not much into coloring, you could leave the panel as is and add a sentiment to create a black and white card. But for today, I will be using the coordinating layering stencils to color our stamped image. Well, if you don't have stencils, you could also use your alcohol markers, watercolor, or any other coloring medium of your choice. Here I have the first layer of my stencil. To keep the stencils in place, I stuck smaller pieces of temporary purple tape on the edges of the stencil. This first layer shows us all of those beautiful sunflowers that we can color. The theme of both our cards today would be yellow and orange. Here I'm using the Simon's Stamp Positively Saturated inks to ink blend over the stencils. I started with this beautiful orange shade. This is called Sherbet, and I am blending on those flowers towards the center of those flowers. And by the time I get around the edges of the flowers, I'll be using yellow citrine color. Moving on to layer number 2, I will be using MOCHA, a shade of brown to color the center of my flowers. For the third layer, I'll be coloring the leaves using Pine and Fairway, which is absolutely beautiful shades of green. I use the same two shades of green for the fourth layer, which is the stem of our floral arrangement. Like I mentioned earlier, if you do not have the stencil, you could also use your alcohol markers, watercolor, or any other coloring medium of your choice. After each round of coloring, I carefully pulled out the stencils, and here's a look at my final result. I love how precise the stencil was and how intricately it allowed me to color even the tiniest part of this floral arrangement. The black heat embossed stamped image definitely adds a lot of shine to this entire panel. Now, since I wanted to create two cards out of this one panel, I went ahead and cut the panel into half, and the two A2 size card fronts stamped and ready to go onto our card bases. I did trim the panel slightly, just a quarter inch smaller than an A2 size panel. The panels you see here are now 4 by 5 1/4 inches, which will give me a thin border around the edges of my card front. To make the panel a lot more colorful, I decided to ink blend the same citrine and sherbet ink around the floral image. I like to use a rough sheet of printer paper below my card panel to protect my work surface from all that ink. Also, since I will be using white card base for my cards today, I don't need any kind of ink smudges on the back of my card. Well, getting back to our cards, I wanted a deep color for the edges, so I did go back and forth with the yellow and orange. I did the same for both my panels. As I was closing towards the stamped image, I was, well, getting more gentler with my blending brush and was not taking any more color on the brush from the ink pads while blending towards the floral image. Once I was satisfied with the ink blending, it's now time to stamp our sentiment. This card design would be perfect for so many occasions. It could be a sympathy card, a birthday card, an encouragement card, and lots more. Today, I will be creating thank you cards. I have this beautiful thank you sentiment from the same Sunflower Fields stamp set. And again, here I plan on black heat embossing this thank you sentiment on the front of our card panel. Well, before we do that, I will go ahead and make sure that this ink panel has completely dried out. One way to test that is by using your anti-static powder tool on the panel where you want to stamp your sentiment and then pour some embossing powder over it. If the embossing powder sticks to the panel even after you ran your anti-static powder tool through it, that indicates that the ink is still wet. The simplest thing you can do here is use your heat gun to speed up the drying process. Just to be sure that my panel is completely dried, I will once again use the embossing powder over the panel, and this time I dried the panel using the heat gun. The embossing powder slides right through it. Now we can place the panel right back into the stamping tool and do our heat embossing. As always, I ran my anti-static powder tool through the portion where I want to stamp my sentiment. I then stamped the sentiment using the same VersaFine Onyx Black ink and heat embossed it using the Simon's Stamp Clear Embossing Powder. I did the same for both my panels. Well, depending on the position of your floral arrangement, you can decide where you want to stamp your sentiment or, well, even add a sentiment strip. Let us now add some shine and sparkle to our card. The easiest way to do that is by using some ink splatters. Here I am using my gold metallic watercolors. I have this splatter box. Actually, it is one of my previous assignments as stamp CardKit boxes. I store most of those boxes for techniques like these. These are perfect when you want to do your ink splatters or use spray paint on your stencils or just card backgrounds. They are even useful when you want to use spray adhesives on thin die cut pieces. For my splatters, I dip the paintbrush in water and without diluting the color too much, I tap the paintbrush filled with the gold metallic watercolor onto either a pencil or a bone folder or, well, maybe another paintbrush. The tapping makes sure that there is good amount of color that is splattered on the card front, since the color is more concentrated and has less water to dilute the paint. Along with the gold metallic watercolor, I also use some black paint splatters on my card front. Now that both our card fronts are ready, I went ahead and adhered them onto a white top folding note card. I used my double-sided tape to adhere this panel onto the note card. At this point, we can call the card done, but I chose to add some of the little tiny pearls. Well, I have these orange crimsicle pearls mixed by Cat Scrappiness. I adhered them onto the card front using my fine tip Barely Art glue. Once I attach the pearls, we can call these cards done. I had so much fun creating these cards. They are so easy to create and mass produce. The easiest way to mass produce them is by using the same color combination on your floral image but changing the color combinations in the background. Instead of using yellow and orange, you can use combinations of blues and greens, pinks and purples, and lots more. If you're not much into coloring, then like I mentioned before, you could leave it as is, stamped in black ink, add a sentiment, and then you will have a plain and simple black and white card ready to go. The stencils would also work by themselves without having the black outlined floral stamped image. The possibilities of using these two products, that is the Sunshine Field stamp set and the coordinating layering stencils, are so many. And this is just the big floral image that I'm talking about. You also saw that the stamp set comes with a smaller bouquet of flowers and a single sunflower, which you could use as the main focal point of our card. I hope you had fun watching today's video and got inspired. I will leave a link down in the description box below for all the supplies that I used for today's video. I would love for you to become a subscriber to my channel, and if you do subscribe or are already a subscriber, please make sure to hit the bell icon so that you don't miss the next time I post. Hit the like button and let me know in the comments down below if you have any ideas or suggestions. Also, if you'd like to share your creations with me, please tag me on my Instagram at rp_shutterbug. There's a link to that in the description box below. Thank you again for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe.